What's up, guys? Thanks for tuning in. I'm your host, Amin the Dream, and today I'm joined by a very special guest, Jessie Naylor from Last Second Sports. And today we're gonna be talking about preseason week one, our thoughts on preseason, and just some Niners topics just some Niner news right now. So let's just jump right into it. Starting off with Trent Williams gets injured. Grant made a video about it. There's many people, Niner content creators, making videos about it. Trent Williams, 5 plays left in training camp. He gets injured. He walks off the field. It either could be a knee injury or it could be a hip injury. Grant said it's a right leg injury. So, what's your thoughts on this injury?
I don't think it'll be anything big. It didn't seem like the team or Shanahan was overly concerned about it. But what I will say is, this was a big reason why I was against giving Trent Williams huge money. Chances are he's only going to play 14, maybe 15 games a year if fully healthy. This is just what he does. He misses time, and he's a great player. Definitely a great player, but that much money at that important of a position to miss any games on a regular or consistent basis is never a good thing. So, just something to monitor. I'm sure he'll be fine, but he will definitely miss 2-3 games this season.
Yep. I mean, I hope it's not a serious injury. What Kyle Shanahan was in the press conference, he said it's nothing that serious. So hopefully he's right. And I mean, like you brought back the contract. I mean, Trent Williams, he definitely is an elite offensive lineman, so that's why the Niners has to be paying that money. Otherwise, he would go to another team and he would make another team's offensive line way better. So it's definitely a priority for the Niners to re-sign Trent Williams at the time. But I just hope it's nothing serious, because if we go on to the season and let's say Jimmy Garoppolo's the quarterback, not Trey Lance, right? If we don't have Trent Williams on that left side, it's going to be worrisome, because that's also going to let Jimmy Garoppolo get injured, a bigger chance of him getting injured, because we don't have the starting off of Trent Williams in. Because Trent Williams is probably the best offensive lineman on our team, and he's probably second or first. You could argue David Bakhtiari, first or second best left tackle in football right now. So he's definitely a vital piece of our offensive line, and without him, it'll be a crucial part of our. It'll be a very big loss for our team. So,
Yeah, at this
but I
point,
just
it definitely would be. You know what's
yeah
crazy though, I mean, is I think I think losing Mack or Lake and Tomlinson would actually be more devastating for this team, just because of who's backing them up. I thought Moore looked pretty good, and that's one of the positives that I did take out of that
yeah
game. And so if he had to play a couple games, it's not the end of the world. Is it ideal? No, but it's something that I'm not that stressed out about if it has to happen for a game or two. Now, if it happens for a season, then yes. Now we got some issues.
not just
True.
forces coming in. Not injured. Yeah, Debo's not injured right now, but it's only one game, bro. It's only one preseason game. Okay, let's see how he does throughout the entire season. Can Debo Samuel can stay healthy? But moving on to the next topic is takeaways from the 49ers versus Chiefs. What were some of your takeaways from the game?
Well, I think one of the things that I just talked about was the interior O line is an absolute mess, and they are one injury away from being in real trouble there. And there's no depth along that line on as far as the interior goes. There's no clear starting right guard, and it's going to be a weakness and trouble for them all season. I would say the big thing that I took away is D'Amico Ryans. I thought his play calling was extremely solid. And obviously, they were outgunned when he had pretty much every starter out other than Greenlaw against a Chiefs offense. But he still did a good job. He called good plays. He put his players in good position. And that's something that I'll be looking forward to as this preseason progresses, is him just getting his legs under him. Because being a play caller in the NFL, especially when it's your first time doing it, is not an easy thing. And it's one of those situations where if he's not on his A game, then regardless of how talented the defense is, it could be an issue. So the fact that he called a nice sound game his first time out, that was extremely impressive for me.
Yep, I mean, he didn't do bad. He actually did pretty good with, especially since he wasn't playing with the starters. Majority of the starters were out. Warner was out. Bosa was obviously out. D Ford was out. Armstead was out. So majority of the starters were out, and he did pretty good, especially for his first time being a defensive coordinator. But one main takeaway that I have from this game is also a defensive player named from your favorite college, Diamador Lenore. And I mean, they targeted Diamo Lenore a lot, and he was not allowing nothing. I think he only had maybe one catch on him. Otherwise, he was not allowing nothing. He even got an interception. I was at the game, so we were going nuts. We were going out. We were doing the wave in the stadium after he made that interception, so we were losing our mind. But I mean, Diamo Lenore, from what I've heard in training camp before the first preseason game, he was not looking that good. Grant reported, and multiple people reported that he was not looking good. They were saying Ambry Thomas was looking good. Where on the
Mm-hmm.
other hand, Diamo Lenore actually looked good in the preseason game, and Ambry Thomas didn't necessarily look that good. I mean, they kept targeting him, and he was just letting receivers catch balls. Like, I mean, he was not a shutdown corner like people said he was. Not, I'm not saying that people say he's a shutdown, but people were talking about him like he was making plays all around the field, and he really wasn't making plays. He was getting the ball thrown to, and he necessarily couldn't stop any receiver. So Diamo Lenore, I was definitely impressed by that because I did not expect anything from Diamo Lenore coming into the game. I was looking to see what Ambry Thomas would do, and Ambry Thomas did not look too good last game, and Diamo Lenore did. So that's one takeaway that I have from that game.
Yeah, I think it's a good takeaway by you. And listen, I've seen a lot of Lenore. He almost sat out last season. He ended up playing, but he's a stingy player. And when we drafted him that late, I was extremely excited about Diamador Lenore for sure.
And I mean, he kind of reminds me of a little bit of a smaller version of a Richard Sherman. I said it on other people's show before, but I mean, like, he's not the fastest guy on the field. He's not as athletically gifted as Ambry Thomas, but he will be that guy that will get up in your face and play physical. That's the one thing that I like about Diamo Lenore, and I think he could be an amazing cornerback in the league.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, if you take away a player at the line of scrimmage, it doesn't matter how fast they are. If you can
Yep.
completely wipe them out, so he's going to play a very physical brand, and sometimes it'll get you beat pretty bad. Sometimes it'll put you on a highlight reel, but for the most part, that aggressive play definitely wins you a lot of games.
Yep. Well, moving on to the next topic, which I'm really excited to get to, is Trey Lance ready to start?
Yeah, of course he is. Like, I'm not going to change my stance after 1 week. Um, okay, so here's my assessment of Trey Lance. Obviously, everybody oohed and awed over the 80-yard touchdown pass, which, by the way, 2 throws is all it took for him to pass Jimmy G's longest touchdown pass of 76 yards. But I actually looked at some other situations. He had a good out pattern that he threw to Richie James, which was dropped by Richie. I thought it was a phenomenal pass. And the situation where they were backed up on their own one and he hit Warner, I thought that was the best pass of the whole game just because of the situation. You're backed up in the end zone, play action, was not afraid to turn his back to the defense and delivered an absolute strike. Ended up being a 34-yard pickup. So, I think that those are things that I looked at as positives. Now, there were a couple things that obviously he needs to improve. His anticipation was a little bit slow on a couple throws. And, over the middle, he struggled a little bit. It's something that doesn't surprise me only because over the middle is not something that he did a lot at NDSU. So I think that those are things that he can improve. But for as much pressure as he saw to get up time and time again, not be afraid, and was delivering balls downfield, I thought that was extremely encouraging. And I know that when he does play, the offense will look nothing like that. First of all, the read option, his ability to move the pocket on bootlegs, all of those things will be incorporated. And Shanahan said he purposely didn't incorporate them. He wants him to stay in the pocket and he wants him to see what that looks like. But overall, I think that offense opens way up once he's able to move. I think the game actually slows down and gets easier for him. And is, for the times that he looked bad in this game, I think that those times are going to be so minimal during the regular season because he's going to learn from this. And again, you add in that run game that it makes it worth starting. Plus, let's not forget, Jimmy G, I get he has a lot of experience, but he has 1 or 2 boneheaded throws every game himself. It's not like
Yeah.
he's perfect. He gets out there, he's going to throw 1 or 2 to the defense. Whether they pick it or not, I'm not sure, but it's something he's prone to do. So if you're okay with Jimmy making those mistakes and including the dinks and dunks, then you should be okay with Trey making those mistakes especially because he's going to give you a bomb or two every game that Jimmy's never going to be able to find, and he can beat you with his legs. So yes, Trey Lance is ready to start week 1, and he should start week 1.
I mean, it's kind of hard to evaluate because number one, he's not getting that many reps with the starters in practice. I mean, he got 2 today. That's pretty good, but I mean, he definitely deserves reps with the starters. I mean, I think he's proven enough to get reps with the starters at least. But it's kind of hard to evaluate when he doesn't get snaps under the starting offensive line. There's many things that I saw in the preseason, first preseason game against the Chiefs that I liked. Like he can launch a ball. I mean, the play action pass, he rolls out, changes direction, and he launches an 80-yard bomb. Like we've never seen Jimmy Garoppolo do that. When there's also some of those throws, I'm like you said, over the middle, right? There's one throw he tried to squeeze it in, and the safety dropped it. Otherwise, it would have been an interception, right? Some of those throws, I'm like, why are you throwing into double coverage? Like it makes no sense for you to throw into double coverage. Even like the first play of the game, he hesitates a little bit. He was gonna throw it. I thought he was gonna throw the football, and he hesitates a little bit, and then he gets sacked eventually. There are some things that I liked about Trey Lance, but there are some things that I didn't like about Trey Lance. But the one thing that I will say why Trey Lance should start week 1, not necessarily because his play was phenomenal week 1 against the Chiefs, but I think number one, Trey Lance is a mobile quarterback. That will help a lot because Jimmy Garoppolo is not a mobile quarterback. Number two, I mean, Trey Lance is only going to get better with game experience. And if you expand that offense, because they didn't make the offense what it will be in the regular season, if you do that, Trey Lance is going to dominate. And I mean, like you said, the run game, right? Mostert wasn't playing. Jeff Wilson's obviously out with injury. Trey Sermon and Wayne Gallman, they're not going to necessarily be your starters. It's going to be Mostert. Mostert's going to be your starter with that healthy offensive line even. There wasn't even the starting offensive line, right? So I think Trey Lance should start week 1 just like you because I think he has a lot of potential and a lot of room to grow. And also, I mean, if Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't play well, let's say he doesn't play well. Hypothetically, he doesn't play well throughout the season. He's going to be on your roster. You're going to have to pay him money. You're going to have to pay him money. Even if you bench him, he's going to be on your bench. If he's on your bench, you're still going to have to pay him money if he's on your roster during the season, right? If you decide to switch from from Jimmy Garoppolo to Trey Lance. So I think it's time to hand the keys to Trey Lance. You've given so much to get Trey Lance. Hand him over the keys, see how he does behind the starting offensive line with the starting receivers, with the healthy defense, with the run game. See how he does. And I mean, starting him in Detroit, I think that's the perfect place to start him, right? If you look at Justin Fields and the Chicago Bears, I mean, if they decide to start Justin Fields week 1, he's gonna have to go up against Aaron Donald and that ferocious Rams team, right? Where on the other hand, you start Trey Lance week 1 against the Lions. No offense to Rad and that team, right? But I mean, the Detroit Lions are not a bad team, but they're also not a contender, right? See how he does against not necessarily not a good defense. See how he does against a mediocre defense. See how he could do against NFL talent. So I definitely think Trey Lance should start week 1, even though some people say he's not ready. I think the Niners should give him a chance. They've traded up so much to get him, and I think he's only going to get better throughout the season.
The game's only going to get easier for him as they open up the offense and allow him to run, period, point blank. And I just posted a play on Twitter. So you look at how exotic that defense actually was in some of those plays. They rolled coverage pre-snap. It looked like cover 1 or cover 3. Post-snap, they're rolling over, playing man concept on one side and handoff zone concepts on the other. They threw a lot at Trey. And yes, did he make mistakes? Certainly. But in those times where he's hesitant and he's trying to go through his reads, he could take off and run in those situations during the regular season, right? Like it's okay to not be able to process everything, but when he's not processing, that's when he can make up for it with his legs. And that's why a lot of rookie quarterbacks who are mobile tend to play well early. You look at Russell Wilson, you look at Herbert, you look at Kyler Murray, you look at Cam Newton. Cam Newton was about as unpolished as it could possibly get coming out of college as a passer. Trey Lance, even though he's only played one season at NDSU as a passer and as somebody who knows a long playbook, a verbose playbook, was able to call his own checks and call his own audibles, is a lot further along than Cam Newton was. Yeah. And Cam Newton played pretty damn good his first season out. And the reason is because he was able to use his legs and they went and used the strength. Another one is RG3. He looked pretty good as a rookie. So once you add in that running ability, things really tend to open up for a rookie quarterback, especially when he's not seeing the field properly. And he can learn from it. The last thing that we want to do is sit Trey Lance all season. He just sat a majority of a full season. Sitting him is not going to help him learn. And Shanahan even said that in his press conference. He said, the only way that he's going to learn is by playing. Well, guess what, Shanahan? Then play him week 1. Because here's the situation. For everybody that wants to start Jimmy, please tell me how Jimmy makes a difference and gets this team to the Super Bowl and Trey Lance doesn't. Yeah. This team's not winning a Super Bowl with Jimmy G. Get that off your checklist. It's not going to happen. So why would you play him over Trey Lance? Because the way that I see it is this team has a better chance in the second season, the playoffs, if Trey Lance has a full 17 games under his belt, because he will, at that point, put a full season behind him, which means he's going to be more prepared in the playoffs than he was week 1, and that gives teams a lot of trouble. Also add in the fact, regardless, they're probably not winning a Super Bowl. Trey Lance year 2 is going to be so much better than he was year 1. And if you wait until the second season for him to start, that means that breakout season doesn't start till year 3. Now you're halfway through a 4-year rookie contract and you've given yourself a 2-year window to actually win a Super Bowl. That's the biggest mistake they can make. Trey Lance should and needs to start week 1.
I mean, look at the Ravens situation in 2018, right? You had Joe Flacco as a starting quarterback. You put in Lamar the last 6 games, if I remember correctly, and you make it to the playoffs. And I mean, even last year, I mean, Herbert and Tyrod Taylor is not the best example, but we would have people before in the draft, before the season started, they said Herbert's not going to play this year. Herbert's definitely not going to play this year. And look at what Herbert did that last year. 31 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Herbert lit it up last year, right? And we would have never been able to see that if Herbert wasn't going to play, right? So why not give that same shot to Trey Lance? See how he does. Obviously, he is a D2 quarterback, but give Trey Lance a chance. And I mean, obviously, in the preseason game, he didn't even get to roll out the pocket. Like you said, you think Justin Fields would have looked that good yesterday if he could just had to stay in the pocket? He couldn't use his
legs. Not a chance.
He wouldn't have gotten not a chance, right? He wouldn't have gotten that one touchdown that he did running out of the pocket. No, if you expect a quarterback that's really good, like Kyler Murray, to stay in the pocket and throw a football and not use his running ability, he's not going to do well either, right? So use his strengths, right? Use Trey Lance's strengths and let him run out of the pocket and do those things because that's his strength. And I think if they let Trey Lance do that on Saturday night, he would have looked way better than he actually did. He would have looked way better than he actually did because if you can't find the read, the play breaks down. That's why I feel like John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan said, hey, let's draft Trey Lance because if the play breaks down, you can get those extra 7 or 8 yards with Trey Lance. You can roll that pocket, get those extra. You can extend the play, right? Where with Jimmy Garoppolo, you can't do that. We've seen it last year, even some of the games that he plays. Once the play breaks down, if he can't find his open receiver, he's just going to hold it like this. He's going to get sacked. Like, that doesn't help your team. So, I definitely think Trey Lance should start week 1.
Not only that, but everybody wants to look at this stat line and act like he played terrible. Here's the thing. Out of 16 design passes, they rolled him out twice. Jimmy had 3 design passes and rolled out once. Where's the ratio out there? They should have rolled him out a minimum of 5 times that game to help him out. Yep. And if you don't have those 4 drops, chances are you're looking at 9 of 14 and around 170 yards, and the stat line all of a sudden looks a heck of a lot better. When you look at it and you see, 4 of 14 or 5 of 14 or whatever it ended up being, yeah, that looks terrible on the surface. But if you actually watch the game, it wasn't near that bad. Not at all.
It wasn't. It definitely wasn't. I mean, like, I don't want to go on a long rant about Richie James, but Richie James should be cut immediately. Immediately. Yes. Yep. Return game, he didn't do nothing in the kick return game, nothing. And then he's dropping so many balls, he couldn't catch one ball. I don't even think he caught one pass, and he got targeted like 3 or 4 times. He couldn't catch nothing.
And it's not only that, there was 4 drops, but they're actually technically almost you can't count the last one or the one by Richie James as a drop, the one over the middle, because he just alligator armed it and didn't even go after it. Anybody else, if they make a play at that, that's a catch. So really, that's five extra receptions that easily could have been had for that offense. So
definitely. Well, moving on, which 49ers player overachieved your expectations in a way? Which 49ers player did you not think that would do so well and they actually surprised you and overachieved your expectations?
Oh gosh. You know what? I'm going to go back to to Jalen Moore because we haven't heard anything about him really all preseason. Everybody talked about Banks. Obviously, everybody's talking about Trey, the secondary. Almost nobody said a thing about Moore. And for him to hold up the way that he did for the most part, I was actually very impressed. Was it perfect? No. But again, this is an offensive line that needs depth, and he brings that much needed depth. Him and Coleman both, I think they both played pretty decent. And that gives me a lot of hope for the swing tackle position as we move forward, that either guy can fill in and hold things down a little bit. So I would say Moore for me is the guy that stood out the most. For what I expected it to be atrocious, and it was not that at all.
Yep. I don't want to make the same answer as you, but just to go briefly off what you said, Jalen Moore, in my opinion, did better than Aaron Banks. Yes, on
Oh, big
Saturday.
time. Yes.
Aaron Banks was just didn't do well. He just did not perform well. Absolutely, he did not perform well. And you drafted him in the second round. Like once the Niners started drafting Aaron Banks, then offensive lineman came off the board. Otherwise, in the second round, it was cornerback Tyson Campbell, Asante Samuel Jr., safeties Trevon Moore, like those guys. Then they finally drafted an offensive lineman. But I mean, Jalen Moore definitely looked amazing out there. Surprisingly, I mean, compared to what I thought he would look, and we haven't, like just like you said, we haven't heard a lot about Jalen Moore, and he definitely. I did not coming into the game. I did not expect Jalen Moore to do much, and he was solid. Okay, he didn't like ball out, but he was definitely solid in my opinion. One guy that stepped out to me, who isn't getting that much love, was JaMycal Hasty. JaMycal Hasty comes into the game, and he was patient. He finds open running lanes, and he was pretty much the offense right there. Like Josh wasn't. He had a pretty good drive, but JaMycal Hasty was also making plays, getting those 10, 15-yard runs. And I mean, he hasn't been getting that much love because we drafted Sermon. We've drafted Elijah Mitchell. Raheem Mostert. Everybody's talking about those guys, but JaMycal Hasty, he did pretty darn good. And I don't know if this is a popular opinion. I'm pretty sure it's not. But I would rather have JaMycal Hasty over Wayne Gallman because I didn't see that much from Wayne Gallman on Saturday. Where I saw JaMycal Hasty, he wanted that roster spot. He wants to be on the team, and he definitely showed that he deserves to be on the team because he was making plays for the Niners on Saturday night. So I definitely think JaMycal Hasty was one guy that definitely surprised me.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I think Hasty deserves to be on this team. And yeah, sure, he fumbled, but and he's got to clean that up. I mean, there's no doubt about it. The most important thing you can do on offense is protect the ball. So, he's got to get that cleaned up, but he looks very explosive this year.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, that fumbling problem that he has, Zeke had that last year, right? Like
For sure.
you're gonna not say Zeke was a top 5 running back, top 10 running back in the league because he had a fumbling problem. No, that can be fixed, right? It's not like an unfixable problem that can be fixed over time. So I definitely think if they give JaMycal Hasty more chances, he could definitely fix that fumbling problem. Because Zeke also had a fumbling problem, and I think he's gonna fix that fumbling problem this year. I don't think he's gonna fumble the ball as much. So definitely. Moving on, which 49ers player underachieved your expectations?
So I'm going to stick along the offensive line, and you just brought him up, but it's got to be Banks, man. I mean, he showed me nothing, absolutely nothing. I thought he was getting beat to the punch all night. There was maybe one good pass pro that I can remember. And then to cap it off, he gets injured. So now he's going to be out probably the rest of the preseason. He's not going to develop. And so much for him being the starting right guard. I mean, this was a second round pick. He absolutely should be a starter because there is no strength there at right guard. And the fact that not only is he not going to start, but he may not play this year. Like, even if somebody goes down, he may not be the first one up off the bench. So that's extremely disappointing for me.
Yep. I definitely got to stick with Banks here. I mean, Banks did not look good last night, and he got injured, right? He got injured, which obviously makes it worse. And I mean, you gave up you drafted him in the second round, right? Like, Jalen Moore, you drafted in the fifth round, and he looked, if not similar or better than Aaron Banks did. And you got him in the fifth round. And
Yep.
you drafted Aaron Banks in the second round, and he's number one injured, and he looked horrible yesterday. I mean, on Saturday, he looked horrible. So like that tells me, just like you said, that tells me like, hey, if Aaron Banks comes back and if we have an injury at that position, I don't think Aaron Banks is gonna start number one. And I also don't think Aaron Banks is gonna get the first chance to be the right guard next to McGlinchey. I really don't, because he just did not look good yesterday, and we definitely do not want both those sides. McGlinchey's horrible at pass blocking. We definitely don't want Aaron Banks there. That makes one side of the offensive line even worse. So I
Yeah.
definitely think Aaron Banks did not do well yesterday. And what even makes me more mad about the Aaron Banks pick is that originally we had the 43rd pick in the second round, and the one guy that I really, really badly wanted was Asante Samuel Jr. And no, none of us probably followed Chargers training camp, but I saw him locking down Keenan Allen. He was shutting down Keenan Allen, who in most people's books is a top 10 pick. I mean, a top 10 wide receiver in the league. Keenan Allen, he's locking down Keenan Allen, right? So cornerback's also another need on our team. And imagine like a healthy Jason Brett and Asante Samuel Jr. on that team, and Diamond Lenore, even if he's a starter and he's doing well throughout preseason, he ends up getting a chance to start. Imagine that team of those three cornerbacks that, and over time that team that cornerback group, if they re-sign Brett, could be a really darn good cornerback group. And I really wanted Asante Samuel Jr. and they really didn't draft him. And if Aaron Banks was a good offensive lineman and he did show me something on Saturday, then I wouldn't really mind, right? But he did not look good whatsoever. So that definitely
Here's
worries me.
here's the crazy thing too. It's not that far fetched at this point that Lenore, Mitchell, and Moore end up being better players than Sermon, Banks, and Ambry Thomas.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I
I mean, even
mean, this
Sam.
this whole regime's first 3 round picks have been atrocious for the most part.
It has been. Even Sermon, I mean, Sermon really wasn't doing that well. Obviously, he also played behind a bad offensive line, but he also didn't really look that good. Like, I mean, to
He
be
didn't
honest,
look
Jamaica, he's
explosive at all to me.
yeah, he didn't look explosive at all. He just kept running into the offensive lineman. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what are you
Yeah.
doing? Jamaica Lacey had to play with the worst offensive line. He looked better, right? He was patient.
Yep.
He found those open running holes while Trey Sermon just running into the offensive line. I'm like, bro, you're only getting like 2 to 3 yards per carry. Like, that's not good. Well, moving on. Thoughts on Talanoa Hufanga? I mean, this guy was everywhere on the field. Every time he was on defense, this guy was making plays. Not those flashy plays, but he was everywhere making tackles. I saw him everywhere on the field. So, what's your thoughts on Talanoa Hufanga so far?
Again, we it seems like we keep talking about late round draft picks, and the 49ers have a knack for this. For as much as they blow the first 3 rounds, they sure do figure it out in the later rounds, and they find some gems. And Hufanga looks like he's another one. People are calling him Palomalu Light. I love that.
No.
He's an absolute missile, man. The guy, as soon as he notices where the ball's at, he is coming at you full bore and he is going to lay the lumber. The thing that gets me the most excited about him is I think special teams, at least in coverage, can be really, really good this year. And I can see him causing some fumbles over there. I could see him pinning teams back over there because a guy wants to make a bad decision and come out, and he's just going to lay him out and end it right there. So, yeah, I'm really excited about Hufanga and the prospects of him on special teams this year and eventually getting into this starting lineup.
Hufanga looked good. I mean, he was making plays all over the field on defense, even special teams. I mean, he was doing
Yep.
pretty darn good on Saturday. He definitely showed. I mean, that Palomalu comparison, he
Palomalu
definitely
light, though. That's,
yeah, no, he
listen.
definitely reminds me of Palomalu, but I mean, Palomalu has football instinct. I mean, he makes plays. Palomalu, you can't compare Talanoa Hufanga to Palomalu.
No,
Palomalu was
no.
special. Troy Palomalu was a special safety. I mean, he was special. Okay, and I mean, I hope Talanoa Hufanga turns to that. I mean, as an Niners fan, I would love him to turn into Troy Polamalu, but do I reasonably think that would happen? No, not really.
I'll take
But I
80% of
definitely
it,
think.
though.
I definitely think he has potential, but Troy Polamalu, I mean, that's kind of a high comparison. Okay, Troy Polamalu is special. I mean, but Talanoa Hufanga, he definitely has lots of potential, and I definitely can see Talanoa Hufanga becoming like one of those guys like George Kittle or Fred Warner. We drafted him in the later rounds, and then in a couple years he gets that 80 to $90 million contract, right? He definitely gets that high expensive contract, so I definitely can see that. and he
Yeah,
definitely has a lot of
absolutely.
potential. Well, we talked about Niners a little bit, so let's switch it up a little bit, and let's talk about the rookie quarterbacks. Which rookie quarterback stood out the most in preseason week 1, in your opinion?
Mm, I don't know, man. It's here's what's crazy is all of these rookie quarterbacks looked good to me. They all looked
Mm-hmm.
pretty efficient. They all had their moments of strength. They all had their moments where they didn't look so good. I would say just off the efficiency, I'm gonna have to go with Wilson, just because he had looked so bad in training camp that the fact that he was
Jesse
able to
just took
put it
my
together. You what?
Jesse legit. I was like, please don't say Wilson. I thought you were gonna say Lance or Fields, and I was like, Wilson's my guy right there, okay? And he legit right was about to say, I was like, he didn't look good at training camp, and Jesse just took that.
Nah, it has
Jesse
to be
reading
though.
my mind out here.
It has
Yeah.
to be just because he didn't look good in training camp, and there was a lot of things coming out. I thought that he looked efficient. He didn't look special by any means, but he looked like he can play. He can play the position in this league, and so for that, I have to give him some credit, and I'm going to go with him. Again, Lawrence had some flashes, but Lawrence to me, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the weight loss, whatever, but I just didn't see a lot of zip on that ball. I thought that his arm would translate a
Same.
lot more, and maybe it will. Like I said, he did have a surgery, he did lose some weight, so maybe he's just getting back that strength. I don't want to pass too much judgment. He definitely can make the throws, right? But it looked more like a golf arm, right? To where he can make the
Mm-hmm.
throws and he can get it there, but he wasn't wowing me with the velocity that
Yeah.
came off of his passes. And I thought in college he showed a lot more zip. So we'll see how it ends up translating.
Yep. Well, you chose Zach Wilson. But I'm gonna go with another guy since you chose Zach Wilson. I'm gonna go with Justin Fields. Now, there are some things about Justin Fields. I was a Justin Fields doubter. Okay, I was one of those guys that I see everybody talking about how you guys shouldn't doubt Justin Fields. Justin Fields will prove you guys wrong. He's the second best quarterback coming out of the draft behind Trevor Lawrence, Mel Kiper. All those guys say that, and I was like one of those guys like, no, he's really not. Just because he ran a 4.4 and all those things, like no, he's really not. He definitely has a lot to improve on in a sense where like he kind of like check downs, those quick passes. He never was able to find those open receivers and throw a long ball or anything like that. And I mean that touchdown, right? Like I mean, obviously people are going nuts about how he threw that touchdown. I mean, Jesse James is wide open. He threw that. Like I mean, seriously, you guys are going nuts after that one wide open touchdown. But with Justin Fields, I definitely think that I saw a lot of good things from Justin Fields. I mean, there are some bad, but there are also some things that Justin Fields has a lot of potential and he definitely could work on. And I mean, in my opinion, yesterday on Saturday, Justin Fields looked better than Trey Lance. Not necessarily because Justin Fields played better, but I mean, Justin Fields, because of how Matt Nagy made Justin Fields look good, because he allowed Justin Fields to run out of the pocket. He allowed Justin Fields to use his legs. And I mean, that's one thing that I liked about Justin Fields. I mean, he used his legs. Some of the plays were dead, and he could get those extra 9 or 10 yards. He could extend plays, and I mean, that's one thing I liked about Justin Fields a lot. And even like that touchdown that he ran in, right? He couldn't find open receivers. He scrambled in for a touchdown. There's a lot of good things I saw from Justin Fields, but I definitely do think that Justin Fields has a lot to improve on, especially finding his open receivers. That's definitely one thing that he needs to work on. That's kind of what my concern, right? Like, if you look at his college tape, I mean, behind that great offensive line, he would find like Chris Olave wide open, and he would just lob it in there, right? And I mean, like, you guys are going nuts after that. Like, what happens if he goes up? Let's say he starts week 1. What happens when he has pressure in his face? Can he make the right decision, or is he gonna throw a bad ball? Is he gonna do what he did against Northwestern, right? Is he gonna make those bad decisions? Is he gonna throw those interceptions? Is he gonna fumble the football? Right. So those were some things that were concerning to me. But Justin Fields, he didn't have an exceptional game, but he definitely proved me wrong, and he has a lot of talent. And I was wrong for doubting Justin Fields. But since you brought up Zach Wilson, before the draft, I was watching Colin Cowherd, and he pointed out something interesting to me. He said Zach Wilson against teams over 500, not Alabama or Clemson, like teams like Utah, teams like Coastal Carolina, right? He is 0-5 against teams over 500, and his touchdown to interception ratio is 1-7. And those are some things that are concerning to me, right? Because before his NFL comp was Aaron Rodgers, and some people also compared him to Johnny Manziel. And I'm like, I get why the Jets drafted Zach Wilson because he has a lot of potential. But he's one of those players that he's a boomer bust, right? Either he
Yep.
could be amazing for you, or he's just gonna be horrible for you, right? So it's kind of hard for me to kind of say Zach Wilson what I predicted Zach Wilson because he's a boomer bust in my opinion. Either he could be spectacular or he could be garbage. But that's one thing that I saw him like he's gonna be he was the second quarterback off the board. He was the second player in the draft. And what happens if he is a bust? Because his NFL comp is Aaron Rodgers. And I mean, Colin Coward even said, like, I mean, flashy, has a long arm, but I mean, Aaron Rodgers, he did say something about Aaron Rodgers. He said Aaron Rodgers is really good against mediocre, but bad against elite and good teams. And I mean, same thing with Zach Wilson. I mean, Zach Wilson's also really not that good against good and elite teams. And what happens when he, in the NFL, what happens when he goes up against a good team? So what's your thoughts on that, what I just mentioned?
Yeah, I agree with you. Listen, and that's why I had to pick Zach Wilson because I am on record in saying that I think Zach Wilson is the biggest bust out of all these guys. I said that he was a professional dunker. He's one of those guys that will wow and pizzazz, but the basics of the game, he doesn't seem to grasp to me. And you saw it in his pro day where he rolled out left, threw deep, wowed everybody. Very similar to that Trey Lance pass, by the way. And the very next play, he threw a 5-yard out and missed him by 2 yards. So those are the things that I saw in his game. It showed up again in his pro day, and it was just something that was a concern. Now, here's what I will say. One thing that I expected of him, and it still may happen. I mean, again, we're talking one preseason game, but I thought he'd be a little bit of a hot shot. I thought he'd feel himself way too much. And I thought that he would think he's more athletic than what he really is, and it would get him in trouble in the NFL. And I saw the exact opposite in that preseason game. And I saw him actually taking the passes that were available to him, making quick decisions and dumping the ball off. And if he plays
Yep.
like that, I think that he's going to have a very good career. It's waiting and trying to throw deep downfield and think that his arm is better than what it is, or running around the pocket like a wild man. You're not that athletic for this league. That is not going to be your game at this level. Now, can you extend some plays? Certainly. But his game is, to me, should be more intermediate, check down, take your shots when you've got them because he definitely has the arm to do so, and be mobile in the pocket, but don't break the pocket and try to, or more importantly, don't break the line of scrimmage too often. That's what I don't want to see from him. And he showed the opposite of what I expected. And that's why I have to give credit where credit is due.
Yep. I mean, he definitely did surprise me because he was making those whatever open receivers that he would find. He was a quick decision maker. He like Corey, like passing to Corey Davis, right? Quick decision. He finds Corey Davis open, he'll throw it right away, right? So definitely those quick
Yep.
decision making were surprising to me because I did not expect that from Zach Wilson. But like I said, that one thing that Colin Cowherd did point out was a little bit concerning to me, right? Because if he's not going to be good against good teams, like then how do you expect him to win in the playoffs? How do you expect him to beat good teams, right? Because obviously, if he couldn't do it in college, right? If he couldn't do it against like Alabama or like a team like Ohio State, fine, we get it, right? Because Trevor Lawrence couldn't even beat Ohio State. But if you
Right.
can't beat like Utah or Coastal Carolina, like that's a little bit concerning. And I definitely before the draft, I definitely thought, yeah, his ego's gonna get to him. But from what I saw in preseason, I mean, he looked pretty darn good, especially with the training camp news. People said he's not gonna make it in this league, and in preseason, he did look good. There's a lot of things to improve on, but he definitely didn't look bad.
Yeah, absolutely. And as far as Justin Fields go, the reason I didn't say him is he showed me exactly what I thought he was. Going into this process, I thought he had a big arm, thought he was athletic. I thought he was actually very accurate. He showed all of those things on Saturday. He showed the big arm. He showed his athleticism. He definitely was very accurate. There was a throw up the left sideline that he threw beautifully in one-on-one, close, tight coverage, gave his receiver a chance to come down with the ball. So all of those things showed to me. The things that concerned me was his reads from left to right. Everybody talked about, oh, he's not a one-read quarterback, and I agree with that. But to me, I saw a lot of high-low reads. That's where he was successful. he didn't make a lot of left to right or right to left reads. And I still didn't see that in that game too often. And then the last thing is that his decision making. We talked about Jimmy G being a bit of a bonehead. He's the same way. He'll, for whatever reason, will just freak out and throw the ball up for anybody at any time. And it's like, dude, where did this come from? Like, why now? Like, why would you
Yeah.
do that? So those, and by the way, he did that. He had the one where he was trying to run around like crazy, fumbled the ball, like all of the things that I thought that he showed again. And so my opinion does not change of him. I still think he's the fourth, possibly the third best quarterback in this draft. And that's where I had him coming in. So I'm not going to give him the nod when my opinion did not change of him at all.
No, I always like it. Justin Fields that nod is because I didn't expect him really to do what he did, and I mean, on Saturday, I mean, obviously I had the same thing, same problems with Justin Fields that you did coming out of the draft. I mean, everybody like by the Clemson game, right? I mean, like, yeah, Jimmy G also has the game that he plays against Drew Brees Saints, and he has a shot, but the other games, right? You can't just base it off that one. Jimmy G also has that one game against Drew Brees where he lights it up, right? But games like he played against like Northwestern or Indiana, right? I'm like, what are those decision making, right? Like, why are you trying to make a play when it's not there? The play, like, just no, right? Do what Brady does, or do throw it out of bounds. Try to get another shot at it when you're trying to make a play when it just isn't there. But what I thought of Justin Fields, I thought he wasn't going to do nothing against preseason, especially being drafted by the Bears because the Bears destroy quarterbacks. But he definitely didn't. He necessarily didn't do amazing, but he definitely didn't do bad. Where I say Justin Fields is going to be a bust in the NFL, so he definitely proved me wrong in that point because I thought Justin Fields was horrible. Like because of those one read option makes bad decisions. That's what Jimmy Garoppolo does. I was like, this guy is just no. He's the fourth best quarterback in the draft, like he said. But he definitely on Saturday he probably looked at least top three in my opinion. Out of all the rookie quarterbacks, he looked top three for me. So I definitely had to get Justin Fields definitely did prove me wrong in some
For sure.
aspects of his game. Not all, but he definitely did prove me wrong in some things that he did on Saturday. But I don't know if you watch Top 100, but if you do, I got some Top 100 stuff for you. Trent Williams was ranked 42nd best player in football. Do you think he should be a little bit higher? Or do you think he should be a little bit lower?
It's hard for me to judge a list because I personally don't watch it. But has every player come out, or are they still doing it by tens?
So basically, they released from like first 100 to like 40.
Mm-hmm.
100 to like 40 or 42, somewhere around that range.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay.
but there are some guys like Devin, like Levante David or like Justin Jefferson that are ranked below him, right? And
Right.
Corey Davis, there's some guys that are ranked below him. I don't know if I can pull up the
So
list. Let me see if I
so
can pull up the list real quick.
yeah, that's fine. Basically, what I was going to say, if the whole list isn't released yet, then it's hard for me to judge it. How many tackles are you going to put above him? Like, do they have him as the second best tackle in the game? Okay. I'll listen to that. I think he's the best tackle, but I could hear an argument for second best tackle. So if that's the case and they have him as the second best tackle, then I don't have an issue with where he's at. If they have him as the third or fourth best tackle, then I'm going to have an issue with it. And as far as comparing players of different positions, that's so hard to do. So if there's 41 really good players in front of him, I'm not too mad about it.
I mean, some of the guys, obviously Zach Martin is below him because he had an injured year. Allen Robinson was below him.
Hmm.
Jesse Bates, who some people have a top five safety, was below him. Adam Thielen, some Teron Armstead tackle for the Saints, left tackle for the
He was in the
Saints.
70s, right?
He was in the 70s. Yep.
Yeah, see, I don't have a
I
problem with
mean,
that.
even like Corey Linsley. Some people say Corey Linsley is better than Trent Williams. Like, no, he's not. Like, just no. But there are some guys that I'm like, why are they below Trent Williams? I mean, they have obviously CMC didn't play that much last year, but CMC is still should be a little bit higher than Trent Williams. CMC was ranked 44, while Trent was ranked 42. I mean, CMC is dynamic. Like he's a
Hmm.
good running back, but he also has another dimension of pass catching. So there are some guys that I definitely think should be above Trent, but I'm not mad at Trent being number 42 because he definitely is a elite offensive lineman. Now, would you be mad if David Bakhtiari was in front of him?
I wouldn't be mad. I would disagree with it, but I can listen to an argument.
Yep. Well, now this ticked off a lot of NFL fans, and I mean, Jair Alexander was ranked 41st. Obviously, we don't know the full list, but just based off some of the elite players in the NFL, like Aaron Donald, Russ, all those elite players, do you think he should be this low at 41, or do you think he should have been like maybe the 30s or the 20s?
Oh, I think he should be higher. I think he's the best corner in the league. Everybody says it's Ramsey. I'm big on Jair Alexander. I think he's that damn good. And so, yeah, I think minimum top 20. I'd put Jair there. I think he's special. He's spectacular. He's going to continue to prove it. And 41's way too low for Jair Alexander.
I definitely agree that 41 is way too low for Jair Alexander, because Jair Alexander is second best cornerback in the league, second best cornerback in football. Okay, behind Jalen Ramsey, because I mean, what Jalen Ramsey does is spectacular. But I mean, Jair Alexander definitely should be higher. I mean, I looked at some of his stats against elite wide receivers, and I mean, he like some of those games, right? Like, let's say Allen Robinson, one catch, 10 yards against going against Jair Alexander. Um, let's look at AJ Brown. I mean, AJ Brown, same thing, one catch, 10 yards against Jair Alexander. I mean, he shuts down elite wide receivers in the league, so he definitely should be higher. I definitely agree with you, but he's definitely still the second best cornerback in my opinion, behind Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you like Jalen, I think it's either one you can go with. I just personally, I think Jair Alexander is quiet. He goes about his business. And when you look at his numbers, I want to say he had like one game where he allowed more than like 29 yards receiving. That's stupid. I don't care who
Yep.
you are. Like, if it gets better than that, then sure. You better have a really good argument ready if it gets better than that. To me, that's as good as it could possibly
Yep.
get.
Yep. Well, that basically wraps up our show. We went past 45 minutes. I really appreciate you coming on, Jessie. If you are subscribed to my channel and you're not subscribed to Jessie's channel, which is really not that likely, it's really like the odds are really, really, really low. But if you're not, go subscribe to Jessie's channel. Link is in the description. Go follow Jessie on Twitter if you haven't already. Link is also in the description. It's Twitter and YouTube. Link is in the description. Jesse is doing a stream on his channel, Last Second Sports, at 7:30. Fantasy. They're talking about fantasy football. So once you're done watching my show, go move on over and go watch Jesse's show at 7:30. I really appreciate you coming on, Jesse. If you haven't already liked the video, subscribe to my channel. Road to 500. I'm really trying to get to 500 subs. So I appreciate you guys all watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.